Well, good morning again. How's everybody doing? Good, fine. The Christianese answer. Well, we are finishing our series of Renew. We have a team in Guatemala right now, and my dad, Pastor Dennis, is there, so you're with me today. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm a little bit more nervous today than I have been in the past, but it could be that we have a new person watching in our family. I don't have any pictures. Sorry, I forgot. But she is in the back if you want to see her live. Riley Renee, or just check my Facebook. There's some funny pictures of her on there. But she is here, and we are happy to be parents and play with her. She's starting to smile and laugh a little bit now, so it's getting a little bit more fun than just crying all the time. But yeah, we are finishing up Renew. I hope this has been helpful to you as we've looked through different things of focusing on. Today we are focusing on living for Christ. Renewing our focus on living for Christ. And the point today is simply to live for Christ is to love like Christ. To live for Christ is to love like Christ. And we've looked at different things, focusing on our spiritual lives, focusing on the church and how we connect with God, focusing on prayer and just talking to Him and Him talking to us. We talked about focusing on grace and being graceful with each other and not being afraid of judgment or anything like that. But today, we are focusing on living for Christ. And one thing that I find that we need to live is to wear stuff. And so I want to look and see what Christians, what followers of Christ should wear. And that sounds kind of weird because if it's coming from the Bible, we know that is before buttons and zippers were created. So it does tell us what we need to wear, but have no fear, it's not robes and sandals and all that stuff. That was funny. In my head it was. You should go in there and then come back out and then... But we're going to have some fun and hopefully encourage you a little bit and help you do some things. And so we're going to look at what people wear, what Christians should wear. And we all know that when certain people wear certain things, when you wear certain things, you're representing something, either a sports team, whatever it is, a religion, anything. And so I have a couple pictures on here that hopefully you can tell me who these people are representing. How about these guys? Ohio State. We got a couple fans. They did win the national championship, so we can't say anything about that. But these are Ohio State fans. How about this guy? A cheesehead, Green Bay Packers. And you know this guy painted his own face in the mirror because the G is backwards. Did you notice that? I thought that was hilarious. How about these guys? The Raiders. I like to put captions with things. If you've followed me on Instagram or Facebook, you know that Riley says a lot of things. And so I thought this guy was like, are those bean burritos over there? And the guy in the middle was like, really, they have food over there? And this guy's just about to sneeze. So weird things in my head, seriously. How about this guy? Brazil. Brazil's what? Soccer. Had to throw it in there, sorry. But we have sports teams, and we can tell who people are following based on that. But we also have different religions. What about this? Muslim. Are we allowed to say that in church? She's the Prophet Muhammad. She's probably following that. How about these guys? Buddhists. Check out these guys with the sunglasses. I thought that was funny. Keeping up. What are these guys following? Sikhism. I mean, to wear something like that, you got to be pretty comfortable with yourself. And then when you get to the next level, you get to wear something like this. I thought that was pretty interesting. So we have these different things, but what do Christians wear? What do Jesus followers wear? We have on one end of the spectrum something like this. Uh-oh. Your clicker messed me up. Not this. There we go. We've all seen this guy. And on the far other end of the spectrum, we have people wearing stuff like this. Yeah, that just makes me want to run to you and ask questions about who God is, right? And so we have all these different things, and based on what we wear, we portray or we display who we are following or what we are following. And there's a person in the Bible, the Apostle Paul, that tells us what we are to wear, what we are to put on as Christians, what we should be wearing from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. And Paul was an interesting guy. Before he was Paul, he was known as Saul of Tarsus, and he called himself a Christian hunter. He hunted Christians. He wanted to throw Christians in jail. He wanted to do everything he could to get Christianity off the grid and have nobody know what it was. And so he's doing all this, and while he's trying to do this, he actually becomes a Christian, and now he's for the other side, and he wants everybody to know what Christianity is, and he wants everybody to understand who Jesus is and what it's all about. And one of the main things that Paul tried to do was teach everybody Jesus and the messages that he taught. And one of the main things that Paul would say to all these churches is, love one another. Because that's what Jesus said. He said, love one another, and that's how you will know you are my disciples. We're going to get to that in a second. But Paul would take this and he would write to churches. He started churches and he used this message, love one another. And towards the end of Jesus' ministry, he was talking with his disciples and he told them this message that changed everything for them. The disciples have been following with Jesus for 3 years now, and Jesus all of a sudden says, where I'm going, you're not going to be able to follow me. Where I'm going, you're not going to be able to come with me. But I want to give you this message. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to remember and do when I am gone. He says, a new command, a new command I give you, love one another. And we're probably thinking, oh, we come to church, you hear love one another, be nice to one another, treat others the way you want to be treated. But he's saying, a new command I give you, love one another. And hold on, I'm not finished yet. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. So I'm saying the way that I have loved you is the way that you are supposed to love other people. And he probably looked at his disciples and he looked over at Nathanael and he said, Nathanael, do you remember the first thing that you ever said about me? Do you remember when Philip came over and said, hey, there's this guy named Jesus and you need to come with me and he's from Nazareth? Do you remember what you said, Nathanael? He said, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nathanael, you dissed my family, you dissed me, you dissed my town. Can anything good? Yeah, I remember Jesus. I remember saying that. He kicks the floor and yeah. Do you remember how I responded to you? I let it go. Remember how you felt that way? You say something and I just forgave you. He talked to all of them. He said, do you remember when I was given this sermon and I said, eat my flesh and drink my blood, and all these people started to just run away from me and abandon me, and I knew that you wanted to abandon me, and I chose not to abandon you even though you wanted to abandon me. Do you remember that? Yeah, I remember that. Do you remember how you felt? Yeah, that's what love is. Even when you wanted to abandon me, I chose not to abandon you. Love like that way. Love in the way that doesn't make sense. Love in the way that people would just scratch their head about. And he says this in 35, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Because if you're going to love like I have loved you, other people are going to see that you're different. They're going to see that there's something different inside of you, and they're going to know that you are a follower of me." And so he's going on and he's teaching about this. And then Peter responds to this, and he says, "Lord, where are you going?" And Jesus is like, "What? I just told you you need to love one another, you need to do this, and people will understand." And Peter says, "Yeah, where are you going? Remember about 10 minutes ago you said, where I'm going you can't follow. Where are you going?" And Jesus is like, "You're not understanding this. We hear love one another all the time. We do this, we hear it all the time, and we just kind of throw it away because we want to do our own thing and understand our own thing. And loving other people is kind of hard sometimes, and we just might not understand it." Jesus says this isn't just a throwaway. This is something that you need to grasp, that you need to understand. That if you're going to be my disciple, you need to love other people the way that I have showed you how to love. And the problem with this is we like to do our own thing and forget about it, just like Peter was doing here, because I think that the gravitational pull, I have it on here, the gravitational pull of any religion, Christianity, whatever, is towards rule keeping rather than relationship building. We would rather have a set of things that we have to do and check off the block rather than try to get messy and deal with people and talk with people, because that gets really messy and really frustrating sometimes. And so we would rather have these things that we could just do, come to church, sit in our chair, take communion, put a check in the offering, hear somebody talk for a little bit, go out and not have to deal with anybody or any issues or anything that might come up in our daily lives. We just want things to happen. And that's what happened throughout all of history. Jesus knew that there was the propensity for Christianity to move into this way of rule keeping. We call these people Pharisees in the Bible. These people just made rule after rule after rule to keep the first rule, and they just wanted to be these perfect people and not come into a place where they thought they could be a little dirty and leave clean. That's what the church is supposed to be. You come in dirty and you leave clean. It's not where you come in falsely clean and leave dirty still. Jesus said, love other people. Understand this. Get this. Put this in your head and live this out. It's not about rule keeping. It's about relationship building. And so Paul took this and made this his mission to teach other people. Paul went around. He started many different churches. He communicated with tons and tons of people. And he did all this before airplanes and cars and all that. And he changed the world with what he did. And he would go to a place, gather a few people, start this church. And then he'd go to another place and right back to the other church and start another church, and just connections everywhere. And he would write these letters to these people. And that's one of the letters that we've been studying, the book of Colossians. It's actually just a letter to the church in Colossae. And he saw the very thing that Jesus knew would happening in this church. He saw the very thing that Jesus didn't want to happen, that Paul didn't want to happen. He saw that happening. And he saw people using their religion to look down at people, and because they weren't as far as they were, or they didn't know as much as the next person, and they were starting to just keep these rules rather than build relationships with other people. And so he writes to them, and he says, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. So he's talking to this church. He's talking to Christians right now. He's talking to the people that say, I want to follow Jesus. I believe he is the Son of God. And I need you to understand that you are no longer part of this world. You are part of something greater. You are in the family of God, and you need to set your hearts on these things. He says, set your minds on things above, not on earthly things, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. I love this verse because we are hidden with Christ. When we say, God, take my life, and we die to our sins, Christ takes us and hides us with him. And I like this because when we get something special, when we get something important to us, we take it and we hide it. A new pair of shoes, we make sure they're all nice and neat and they stay in the box for a little while, and we put them up on the shelf so they don't get scuffed by all the other ones down there. Or when we get a new phone, we get a phone, and at least for me, the first thing I do is I get a screen protector and put that on. And then I get something to protect the back of it, and then I have this case on my phone where it's one piece on there, and then it's another piece surrounding that piece, and it's protected, and it's hidden. The actual device is hidden from dust and water and all this stuff because it's special, and I like it, and I don't want it to get messed up. And eventually Riley's going to be playing with it, and it's going to shatter or get drool all over it. But Christ is doing this very thing with us. He's taking us and he's hiding us with him, and he's protecting us and keeping us safe from this world and the things in it. And he says in verse 4, when Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. And he lists all these different things: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived. You used to walk in these ways. You used to do these things. It used to be the thing that was first on your mind. And now he's saying, things have changed. You've been baptized with Christ. You've been following Christ. You've been doing these things. Why are you going back to these things? And then Paul turns it up a little bit. He says, but now you must also rid yourself of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language from your lips. Don't lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator. And it's being renewed. It's being renewed, which means it's a process. Oh, every day it's a little bit more knowledge. Every day it's a little bit more understanding. Every day it's something a little bit closer to understanding who God really is. It's a process. The whole Christian faith is based on a process of getting just a little bit closer, understanding a little bit more, understanding God's love a little bit more, and feeling his love for us a little bit more. It's a process, and it's not a race. The person sitting next to you might be a little bit further than you, but that's okay. That's what God has for them. It's between you and God, how your relationship with him is. We're not comparing each other. God says it's a process, and so that's what it is. And then Paul goes on to say, instead of these things, those things in the past, those things that you've used to do these things, put these things on. And he says in verse 12, he says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And what I like to do is have some visuals for this. And so I've asked a few aspiring fashion models to help me today. And we're going to talk about these things and see what Paul is actually talking about, because he takes this message of love one another and he puts it in practical terms. He makes it simple. which I like because I need simple to understand things. And that's why I do silly pictures and silly things that you're about to see so that I can remember it. And so he takes this and he puts words to love one another and what that means and what that looks like. And so we're going to talk about these things. And so the first one, we have compassion. This is compassion from Wrightsville, Pennsylvania. So you can just stay over there. And compassion it's saying, we love you with all my heart. We say it that way. I love you with all my heart. I have something that is breaking my heart. In the Greek language, it's kind of weird. The New Testament was originally written in Greek, and the word for compassion literally means, kind of gross, I love you with all my guts. Even more specific, it means I love you with all my bowels. So it's kind of that feeling of like I care about you, I love you, but it's more down here. It's like I love you. Like, try that tonight when you go to bed. Honey, I love you with all my bowels, and see what happens. If your spouse or kid isn't here, just tell them you should have came to church. You would understand. But it's more than just saying you should have studied harder, or you should have worked harder, or you should have done this. It's coming alongside somebody and saying, yeah, you should have done those things, and you eventually tell them that, but you come alongside them and say, look, we're going to get through this together because I understand what you're going through. And that's what we have to do. We have to put ourselves in their position and see what it's all about. Second one is kindness. Where's kindness at? Kindness is simply loaning your strength to someone else. Loaning your strength to someone else. Oh, we should have got somebody else for that one. So this means somebody needs something done. Somebody needs some help. Somebody has something that they can't do, or they can't do it on their own. And it's us extending ourselves, even though it might be somewhat inconvenient for us, to say, I'm going to help you. I see that you are struggling in this area. I'm good at this. I can do this. I can help you. And it's putting your strength for someone else. Paul says, be known for being kind and loaning your strength to other people. The next one is humility. Humility is seeing yourself in relationship to other people and to God. And all these things that we're talking about are they're in relation to other people. Okay? So we are compassionate with other people. We are humble with other people. And it's viewing yourself, humility is viewing yourself the way you actually are, seeing yourself the way you actually are, regardless of how talented you are or how talented I might be. It's if you're in a room and you know you make the most money, or you have the most followers on Twitter, or whatever it might be, the captain of the team, that's not the first thing that you're going to be talking about, or that's not what you're going to be hovering over everybody's head. Because the thing that makes humility important, and the thing that we need to understand about it, is the only thing that makes us special, the only thing that makes us important, is the love that God has for you and the love that God has for me. And if we could understand that and we could see that, then we got it. Then we understand that even though you can run a little faster or jump a little higher than I can, we understand that we're all the same and we're no different. Next one is gentleness. Where's gentleness? Oh, geez. Let's see. Yeah, we'll be all right. Gentleness is the decision to respond in relation to your weakness. Rather than coming to you in my strength and using everything that I have and trying to put myself above you, I'm going to lower myself and use my strength at a lower level to meet you where you're at. Does that make sense? So it's the difference between picking up a contact lens on your finger or picking up a bowling ball with the palm of your hand. I can do both, but if I pick up a contact lens like I'm going to pick up a bowling ball, it's going to be crushed. And so we need to understand how to meet people at their level and come to them, not in a condescending way or anything like that, but in a way that is going to help them and meet them where they're at. It's saying that my relationship with you is more important than you being impressed by me. My relationship with you is more important than you being impressed by me. Yeah, I can do a whole lot more, or I could do this, but I'm going to come alongside of you and meet you where you're at, rather than try to make you think that I'm great and all of that. And the last one, not the last one, the next one is patience. Patience. Patience is the decision to simply go the speed of another person. And I've never been really good at patience. I'm still working on it, just being transparent. And so God gave us Riley to help me speed up that process a little bit. And so one thing is just slowing down and understanding that some people need a little bit more time, especially babies, need a little bit more time to get things done, and everything that's going around might not be as important as I once thought it was. And so patience, put on patience. And Paul continues, he says, bear with one another and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. So we have forgiveness to put on. All right. I'm really messing up the camera. So forgive as the Lord forgave you. Love as the Lord loved you, and forgive the same way. So be gentle, put on gentleness, be patient. Be patient as God was patient with you. Remember how many times you said, God, I never will, and we did it again? And God was patient with us the next time and the time after that. He says, I want you to extend all of these things. I want you to put all of these things on and be known for people who have these things. And Paul summarizes this whole thing, and he says, and over all of these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. And so I have something special for that. I had my aunt create this extra large t-shirt that we're going to put on. Can you put this on, please? Only the ends have arms. We're missing one. And so we have love that we need to put on that binds us all together in perfect unity. Isn't that awesome? All right, you can have a seat. Thank you. All right. So we've had some fun, made you laugh a little bit. I want to put a list of all of these things on the screen because we come to church and you expect to hear something like this. Oh, you need to put on compassion and put on kindness. And it even sounds more spiritual when you kind of whisper it, and put on gentleness. And it just sounds so nice. Except the problem is, as soon as you stand up and walk outside, we have to deal with people. And that can be a little bit difficult. And so, of course, you're going to hear this coming to church, put on compassion, do all this. But when we have to go out in the real world and buy stuff and sell stuff and make a living, it's not as simple. But the reason that this is possible, or the reason that I think it can be done, is the person who did it, the person who displayed it. And I know you would expect me to say Jesus, but of course he did. But I want to say Paul. Paul did this and displayed all of these things everywhere he went. He not only told people to do it or taught people how to do it or put these things on and live this way. He actually lived out what he was teaching. And like I said, he would go to different churches and meet all kinds of people and teach them over and over and over again these different things to put on, because it's all about loving other people. And so he showed how to do this, and he did it before cars. He would walk everywhere, so you know he was tired. He did it before Tylenol was invented, so you know he had headaches sometimes. But he still showed all of these things. And so it's possible for us to do the same. It's not natural. If this was natural, Jesus wouldn't have to teach it. Paul wouldn't have to teach it. We wouldn't have to talk about it today. If these things happen naturally, we would be doing them. But it's a decision to do each one of these every single day. It's the choice to get up in the morning. Maybe you need to take this list and print it out and put it in your closet and say, what should I wear today? And have these things. Don't forget your pants and your shirt, because that would not be good. But have a reminder of these things wherever you go. And again, if you thought this was lame, it's about to get even lamer, because I like things that help me remember these things. A couple months ago, we actually talked about this, a similar lesson in Elevate, and I still have people saying what I'm about to teach you today. And so we take this, and I came up with an acronym to help me remember this, and hopefully it'll help you remember it as well. People get hype for leftover cheese kebabs. Everybody say that with me. People get hype for leftover cheese kebabs. I don't know if you've had a cheese kebab in your life or not, but the leftover ones, whoa, people get hype for them. And so I took all this. People get hype for leftover cheese kebabs. Maybe you are going to work and you got stuck in traffic. That's what gets me riled up and angry. So before you get into your office or wherever it might be, just remember, people get hyped for leftover cheese kebabs. And we actually have leftover cheese kebabs for everybody. I'm just kidding. But just think about this. People get hyped for leftover cheese kebabs. Patience, right? Patience. People get, gentleness. And maybe this is something, come up with your own thing, however it is that you can remember these things, to put these things on, to understand these things. Love one another. Put on compassion. Put on kindness. Put on gentleness. Maybe it's even when you're coming home. Because we go to work all day, and if you're married or you have kids or whatever, that's another job in itself. Yeah, it's joyous sometimes, but it's still a job. And I'm young and still trying to figure all this stuff out. I've only been married 2.5 years and had a kid for 2.5 months or 1.5 months, whatever it is. Anyway, so it's another job. So before you walk in the door, just put these things on and remember those. Say, God, give me patience. God, give me gentleness. God, humble myself and help me to forgive other people that have really hurt me and they don't deserve my forgiveness, but I don't deserve your forgiveness either. And God, help me to love other people the way that you have loved me. And help me to have that sense of that compassion for somebody. And help me to be kind. And then you walk in the door and you have these things on and you're a totally different person. And over time, you're going to get better at these things. And over time, you're going to understand the importance of these things. And so we put on compassion, we put on kindness one day at a time and get a little bit better next time. Because we are going to fail and we are going to need reminded of these things, but don't fall all the way back, just fall one step back, and then the next time, go 2 steps forwards. Does that make sense? Paul finishes up his letter and he says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you are called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs of spirit from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. It's all because of Christ that we are even able to talk about these things and even able to try to do these things. Because he died on the cross for us, shed his blood. He's the reason that we can even do this. And he's the one that taught us to do these things. So as you go out today, love one another. Give somebody a hug. I'm all about hugs. Whenever we start Elevate, we always start with find 3 people, give them a hug, and tell them you love them. So as you leave today, find 3 people, give them a hug, and tell them you love them. Because here should be the place where all of this stuff is happening automatically. Out there, it's a little bit more difficult, but now we have each other, and we have everybody to rely on, and it's all because of Christ who did this for us. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this opportunity to just gather together, to be with you. God, help us to understand these things. Help us to live these things out. God, it's not natural for us to do it. But with you, we can do all things. And when we do these things, people will know who you are. God, we thank you and love you for everything that you've done, for dying on the cross, for giving us a second chance and a chance after that and a chance after that. God, let us do the same with the people in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.